I'm Lisa K. Donner, along with Jeff Charles, Sarah Cowgill, Andrew Moran, and James Fife. And this is the Conservative Five, Liberty Nation's online TV news program. The 20th anniversary of 9/11 seems to have brought us full circle. Once united, America is now bitterly divided. The Taliban appears to be back and bigger than ever, and Americans are right to wonder, how long will the homeland stay secure? Meanwhile, we look back and remember, where were we? Where were you? And what have we accomplished in the 20 years since that fateful day? The president is being called killer in chief by some family members of 9/11 victims. Pretty harsh. Other folks seem to have forgotten the day. Heck, even one of our sitting Congress members brushed it off as a day when some people did, quote, something. So much to unpack. Jeff, a lot has changed since the trade towers fell, the Pentagon was bombed, and an airplane went down in rural Pennsylvania. What's your take on the situation going forward?
You know what's interesting, Lisa? Yesterday, I went back and I found an interview with President Joe Biden when he was just a senator on September 12th, 2001, the day after we were attacked and lost 3,000 people. He was the chairman of the Senate Foreign Relations Committee. And the Biden that we saw back then is a lot different from the one that we're seeing now, especially in relation to the Taliban. When he was speaking with Charlie Rose, he was talking about how, we didn't really know who had done the attack yet, but he was saying whoever it was, we were going to get him. We wouldn't respect the sovereignty of any nation harboring them, and we would do it unilaterally if we had to, even if our allies told us not to. He was very hawkish. Everybody was back then. We had just gotten attacked. But to contrast to his approach to the Taliban now, where he is essentially kowtowing to them, and even before the August 31st deadline passed, he was allowing the Taliban to basically tell them, no, you guys got to be out, because they were talking about potentially extending the deadline to get more people out. And after the Taliban came out and said, nope, you're not going to do that, Biden was like, oh, okay, whatever. That is a huge difference from 20 years ago. So that is the main difference that I'm noticing. And I'm sure there are even other areas in which things have changed when it comes to how we handle things when it comes to foreign policy.
So you're saying a politician has changed his mind. Jim, what a shocker.
Well, hey, maybe it's just that these days he's more used to being told what to say and to whom.
Yeah, exactly. Well, where do you see this going, Jim? Let's remember Biden planned to do the pullout right before 9/11. So now he's reaping what he's sown.
Yeah, but it's not just Biden reaping what he's sown. We've got a lot of people left over there that are also reaping what he has sown. This is Biden's deadline. He came up with a date. Where do I see it
everybody's
going?
blaming Trump if
know.
they can get away with it.
Yeah, we've got a lot of people left over there, and I just hope we get everybody home.
Well,
this is bad for Biden politically, but far more importantly, their lives at stake.
Yeah, I think the American public is now confused. Biden is trying to get Afghanistan off the front page, Andrew, and try as he might, it's kind of sticking there, mostly because there's hundreds, if not maybe 1,000 people stuck on the tarmac in Kabul airport. There's controversy about whether the State Department is helping or hindering. I think the American people are right to be confused, and a lot of them are quite angry.
Well, I think we should look at this whole debacle as a cautionary tale, as in you should not, nation build. Everything that's happened over the last 20 years or since September 11th, it's a perfect reminder of why the foreign policy or the neoconservative policy has been a disaster for the United States. $2 trillion in Afghanistan, $1 trillion in the war in Iraq. You have soldiers everywhere scattered across the Middle East and around the world. You have Americans stuck in Afghanistan. Now you have the disaster of this withdrawal occurring. Everything that's happened since September 11th, 2001 terrorist attacks, we have to remember that, you go after the target. In this case, it was Osama bin Laden, and then you get out. Why did the United States need to occupy Afghanistan, spend all this money? And then at the end of the day, you're stuck in the exact same place you were when the whole war started. The Taliban's back in power. It's completely asinine of what's happened over the last time. This massive superpower known as the United States, and then what are you left with? You know, this backwards thinking terrorist group back in power.
Yeah,
it's embarrassing. I think, frankly, it's embarrassing for the country, for the administration, and honestly, you know, we didn't. If it had been up to me, we would have done more damage 20 years ago. But the optics were so bad. People were so worried we were going to look like the biggest bullies in the world. And sometimes you got to be the biggest bullies in the world to stop things from happening. We've just let them all regain power, and it's embarrassing.
Sarah, do you think we're more secure or less secure than we were 20 years ago? And if so, why? And if not, why not?
Well, I think it's like national security whack-a-mole. You know, we plug some holes. We plug the holes at the airports and flights and vetting and the Patriot Act that everybody has everybody up in arms, and we have more cameras everywhere. But there's going to be a loophole. There is always a loophole, and all they have to do is find it. So I don't think we're any more secure except for at the airports.
I think the U.S. is actually more secure because if you read the writings of Osama bin Laden, one of his main goals was to have the United States military in the Middle East and Afghanistan and the surrounding regions. Why? Because it's easier to target American soldiers, and then he wanted to bleed the treasury of all this money and, you know, waste all these American lives. So he accomplished his goal of getting Americans in Afghanistan. But will anybody learn from it? Probably not. And they'll just go on. The next president or the president after will just start this other war, and you're gonna have the repeat of what's happened in Afghanistan and Iraq and everywhere else, Syria, you know.
Jim, go ahead, Jeff.
No, I'm inclined to agree with Andrew. I mean, having our troops over there, that wasn't necessarily keeping us safer. I know the whole mantra was we need to fight the terrorists over there so we don't have to fight them over here. I think that as far as Homeland Security goes, we have grown in that area. After we've removed troops, there is absolutely no way that our people aren't going to be monitoring the situation. And even President Trump, when he was trying to get the troops out, he said, we're still going to monitor it. And if it looks like something's going down, we can always go back. Now that we have this president, though, I'm not so sure that would happen. But I still am inclined to agree that there are still people in the government or in our military, in our intelligence agencies who are going to monitor the situation and ensure that this doesn't blow back on us. I hope I don't have to eat my words someday.
Jim, don't you think that this whole Afghanistan thing puts a pall over the 9/11 20th anniversary?
Yeah, and you know, I read this morning that there are actually a lot of 9/11 families, you know, the survivors of people that died in the 9/11 attack, who are telling Biden, "Don't come to these events. Don't come to our anniversary. Stay away." These are, you know, same people that are calling him killer in chief, which. It is harsh, but I had to kind of chuckle a little bit. I could only imagine Vladimir Putin sitting back hearing that and getting a chuckle out of it after Biden called him a killer.
Well, he's getting heckled everywhere he goes. I mean, he was touring the storm damage, Ida damage up in New Jersey, and people were out in droves calling him names. And this isn't the happy, united, administration. He's in deep trouble
I think
with the electorate.
I think you used the right word, Sarah, when you call this embarrassing. He embarrassed the nation. And when this whole thing was starting to get closer, I wanted to defend Biden on this because I wanted to be able to say at least he did this right, because I agreed with what he wanted to do, get our troops out. But the situation was just it was beyond just having just a few snags here and there. It was horrible. And yes, it is embarrassing. This will be a stain on our history. It's going to be worse than it was when we left Vietnam. And so I can see why people are angry at him. On top of that, we lost 13 soldiers that we didn't need to lose.
Yeah, what I find interesting about Joe Biden is that every time he delivers a speech in Afghanistan, he's always talking about the rationale behind pulling out. If you look at the polls, most Americans agree of ending this war in Afghanistan, but he always avoids the main problem of the story. It was a withdrawal. So he's making an argument nobody's really making. And to attest to Sarah's viewpoint of embarrassment, I could if anybody watched the 2001 World Series when George W. Bush threw out the first pitch of Game 3, you watch that the clip, and everyone's cheering, everyone's applauding. Everyone checked politics at the door. But I can imagine today if Joe Biden would throw a pitch in the World Series, I'm pretty sure you'd have a lot of booing going on. But thankfully, the Yankees aren't making the World Series, so you don't have to worry about that happening.
Well, he'd probably throw it to third base, Andrew. And the
It
other
would be an
thing
amusing
is,
scene in of itself.
I've got a weird, uneasy feeling in my gut, and it's not as bad as watching the second plane fly into the towers when I was fixing to fly from Indianapolis to Phoenix that day. It's not that bad, but something big is brewing, and that's just my gut after living 58 years.
They have been warning about potential attacks coming. I mean, I'm not trying to fearmonger because this happens every year, but I mean, they have been warning about increased activity in Al-Qaeda networks and circles and things like that. So I bet hopefully our people are on it.
I'm not afraid of it. I am not afraid of it, but I think it's coming.
Well, we did a poll at Liberty Nation. We don't do a lot of polls, but we had more than 5,000 people participate in this poll. When you think about it, Rasmussen does a poll. Now there's a scientific, ours wasn't scientific, but they're sampling about 1,000 people. So when you think about it, that's a lot of people.
Yeah, your average poll doesn't break 2,000.
Yeah. And it was over 5,000 people, and they had a lot of themes. And one of the themes was people can't seem to forget Americans leaping out of the World Trade Center buildings. I mean, that is like indelibly burned into the national consciousness.
Yeah, I can't forget it. It's 20 years. It's a horrible day for a pullout anyway. It's a horrible day for this president to go anywhere as a memorial and honor anyone. And I feel something big is brewing. I just do. I don't worry about it, because if it does, it does. It happens. Nobody can seem to stop it. I can't stop it, but I think it's out there and I think it's coming.
I remember when I was a kid, if I turn on CNN, they always have this terrorist alert. They'd have red and yellow and green. So you wake up, you see, you're fearful, saying, "Oh, we're on orange. You're on orange alert today. You got to be careful. There's terrorists." So I wonder if CNN will have that these days, or if it's just all about COVID.
Well, 20 years ago they kicked the anthill, and I mean, it's 20 years later that scar still remains and that anger still remains.
Yeah, a lot of rage, a lot of fury, but in a strange twist on Winston Churchill's line, this was not Joe Biden's finest hour. At Liberty Nation, we honor all those who gave their lives for this country and those who perished when terror struck. All heroes in my book. Thanks so much for watching, and may we hold fast to these words. Never again. That's it for our Conservative 5 panel today. Check out our other C5 shows and segments on your favorite video platform, YouTube, Vimeo, Rumble. We're on them all. As well, Liberty Nation has its own Roku channel where you can see all of our TV productions. Thanks for tuning in, and remember to surf on over to libertynation.com. Sign up for our new member zone, just $29.99 for the year. For our post-production coordinator and editor, Frank DiOrio, and executive producer, Sarah Cowgill, I'm Lisa K. Donner, editor-in-chief. Thanks so much for joining us today. This has been a production of libertynation.com, conservative news where truth matters.